Hi, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the first of my Summerween updates. Today we'll be talking about the first 3 books that I read for the readathon, thanks to the lovely Gabby Reads, and of course, we'll be joined by Paul. But since the first prompt I did was to read a book in the dark, let's get into something a little more appropriate for that prompt, shall we? One moment, if you please. There. Much better for talking about a book I read in the dark, don't you think? Now, I wish that the book that I had read in the dark was The Social Aid's Guide to Murder, just because it looks really cute with this. But, alas, we will be talking about Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. Now, I'm sticking with the slightly 1950s theme, although I think we've gone more for the Hollywood glam look with this, and this is the spookiest pajama ensemble I could come up with. Listen for the Lie, I did read totally in the dark, so this I finished technically second during the readathon because I had to read it across like 2 nights, and it was a really interesting book. This was the one about the 2 best friends in Texas who lived in a small town, and they were like beautiful and smart and everyone wanted to be them, and they were super close. And then the one, Lucy, she got married to this guy, you know, she had the ring, the house, everything, and then, you know, things kind of went downhill when her bestie got, you know, murdered, which is gonna throw you off no matter what, but she turned up the morning after covered in blood, and at first everyone was like, she's injured too. Did someone try to hurt them both? And then they were like, oh, it's best friend's blood. You did it, didn't you? Ambiguous, because Lucy, yet she can't remember anything about the night her best friend Safi died, so she decides to just like leave. Bye-bye husband, bye-bye town, moves to LA, forgets everything about it, until Ben Owens, this very handsome guy who like blows up with his first season of his podcast, Listen for the Lie, decides, you know what, I'm gonna do my next season on these girls, Lucy and Savvy from Texas. I'm gonna bombard her with emails until she decides to come back to town and give me that interview I want. And that's what happens. She heads back to her small town, and the 2 of them like really get into the investigation because it is time to find out, not the lie, but the truth. So the book started off, and I was enjoying it, but it instantly employed this writing device in thrillers that is used that I really don't enjoy. I can enjoy unreliable narrators. Sometimes when they are done in a very specific way and introduced to us in a very specific way, I find myself going, oh, so you're gonna make me question if you're literally like seeing things in crazy this entire time. I can't tell if like I just don't like it, and occasionally I do, or if I just feel like most authors don't do it well. That's a terrible thing to say, but it's the truth. And then around page 140, the book's like, hey, guess what? This is what's kind of like really going on here. And I'm like, this is way more involved and interesting than I thought. This author's really playing with some stuff here. This isn't gonna be the quiet little thriller I thought it was gonna be. And then we turn like 2 more pages, and then I'm like, oh, okay, you have my attention. I'm sitting up, my head is cocked, my eyes are narrowed, and that's when the story just like cracks open, and it's like, this is what you're really reading. Just so you know, you need to like really pay attention, because everything you just thought you've read, yeah, think about it again now. And sometimes I hate when books do that, but mostly, no. Who am I kidding? I love it when books do that. They just like crack open, and you're like, oh my god, okay, got it. This is what the story's about. This is what's really going on. And this book, it was so much deeper, it was so much darker. And you also got this like deep underlying sense throughout the entire thing. Like, if no one trusts you, does that mean you can't trust yourself? Or like, do you develop a sense of distrust because no one trusts you, but should you still trust yourself? It got so deep and windy in there, and played these mental games, really just ended up messing with me as a reader, which was delightful for Summerween. I didn't expect this to go to places it did, like going to places without trusting your family, trusting men in general. Men were really mostly scary in this book, and yet they also provided some safe spaces and some ways for redemption. They were really these either black or white figures, it seemed, and you never really knew what you were gonna get, no matter what you were presented with, until you were hit with that moment. This is one of the most interesting cases of an unreliable or potentially unreliable, or should we be listening to her, or should we not be listening to her, narrator that I have seen in a while. It was really, really well done, and I oftentimes do not necessarily enjoy the unreliable narrator. I need somebody to trust in a book, okay? Just call me old-fashioned that way. It was also well-paced. The writing was frank without lacking detail or without lacking any sense of personality at all. Sometimes I find that thriller writers tend to like their writing to just sort of fade into the back, and this did have a little bit of personality, which I appreciated. And there was a really large cast of characters in this town, and I was pretty impressed with the way the author was able to introduce them at a good pace and keep them fresh and interesting enough that you were able to keep them all kind of straight, but also keep them all relevant as well, and make sure they all mattered in their own way in the end. And the pacing itself just kept you moving really quickly because you kept getting a page or two of interviews directly from the podcast. So it kept things fresh and interesting, and while you only did have one point of view, you never felt like it was only one point of view. You were always getting fresh perspectives and lots of information thrown at you in a way that made sense for the book, but in a way that also was like, oh my god, how do I keep all of this straight? And you felt like you stood a chance to solve this one. Well, maybe you did. I'm terrible at these. Someone, somewhere, stood a chance to solve this one. Probably, I think. This is the best that I have read so far. I think another book is going to take top spot for this readathon. It's like almost 5 stars. It's like right there. I didn't quite get the ultimate gasp 5-star, this is amazing feels, but it's so close. Like, I honestly think it was the ending, and there's just a slight bit of ambiguity, this haunting sense that just left me a little unsettled. Some people are gonna love it, some people are gonna hate it, and I think that's what kept me from giving it the final little 5 stars. At the very least, this is a solid 4.5. I really enjoyed it. I definitely recommend this one if you can handle some of the darker themes that go throughout the book. It was a great read. And now, since we are done talking about what I read in the dark, I guess I will get into something a little less comfortable while we talk about what I read during the daylight. One moment, please. And now that I am significantly less comfortable, let's get back to the book reviews, shall we? Now, because I just absolutely refuse to do anything in order, the second prompt was to read a thriller or horror book, and I chose How to Solve Your Own Murder, but I'm reading that now, so I can't tell you what I think yet. Aside from it's really good so far. But the next book that I did read was prompt 3, read a book with the night sky on the cover. Careful What You Wish For was not terrible. Yay for Halle Efron. Alas, it did suffer from first book syndrome. So this book was the book that I was afraid to read, if you all recall. This is about Emily the organizer, who had a video go viral, and it was of her organizing her sock drawer, of all things, if I remember correctly. And she uses it to launch her organizing business, which she basically does like all the legwork still with herself, but the business is small, but she has like an assistant slash partner, and they work together. And she has a husband who is a collector, aka her polar opposite, and he has filled the garage, the attic, the basement. I'm not a neat, tidy person. He kind of can handle that, but I don't like obsessively, compulsively stalk every single yard sale and estate sale and eBay auction constantly. I did go on eBay recently, but I digress. So she is using her new cases to distract herself and hide her secret shame, because like if people knew what her basement and her attic and like different parts of her house looked like, she might not have people coming to her to like be an organizational guru. But to distract herself from her husband and his crazy auctioning eBay ways, she has just gotten 2 new great clients. One is a woman who was widowed, and she's been widowed for about a year, but she just got a bill for one of those big shipping like locker places with big full room ones. Yeah, she didn't know her husband had it, so surprise! Yeah, he's a collector too. And then she also has another new client, a wife who is not a collector, but whose husband is, and he won't let her bring her like little garage bay of previous belongings of things like little like Care Bear stuffed animals from her childhood like into the house, and it's been like years. So she's like, I guess you can help me like donate it or sell it. I'm ready to just give up. it's really kind of sad. And so the two of them like have a few drinks and talk about, boy, wouldn't it be nice if our collector husbands just kind of like weren't collectors or maybe like disappeared. And yeah, boy, does the book frickin' take off from there. Let me tell you, I'll just let you guess what happens. Someone took the plan a little too seriously after all those drinks, let me freaking tell you. So, as I said, the book definitely suffers from like first book syndrome. We did have two really interesting cases running through the book, and while that was a strong point for me, it was also a weak point for me. Both were, I have to say, deceptively complex. Both of them had surprisingly deep layers and a surprising number of twists, given that there were two in the book. But they both needed more breathing room. This book is pretty short. It was not even quite 300 pages, and they both really needed a bit more space, a bit more explanation, and it was the ending in particular where things really kind of felt so unbelievably rushed that I won't say everything fell apart, but you remembered you were reading a book and it felt kind of unbelievable, and you didn't necessarily totally lose the plot, but it just, you didn't buy it. Like, it didn't all feel tied up. Everything just felt like one of those Lifetime movies at the end where it's just like, okay, I'm watching Lifetime, this is where it all goes a little nutty, and I was expecting it. I wanted more for this book, and I feel like the author could have done more if she'd just given herself some more pages. What was done so well and made the book so continuously compelling was not the writing, I will tell you that much. The writing was so forgettable. Another part of the whole first book syndrome thing, I will say that much. But it was the constant, almost combative nature of the juxtaposition of messy versus neat. You were continuously going from these super messy situations, literally and figuratively, these messy basements where things were like so piled up, they were falling on you, and at one point, like literally like injuring the poor main character at one point. She like hurts herself. Or, you know, you're in this massive storage space and like the climate control's failing and things are like mildewed and like molded. But then you go to these very neat, tidy little spaces where there's like the perfection of a very wealthy person's house, like her client, where everything is perfect and organized in marble, and her recording these like perfectly organized little videos and doing her closet and everything's like exact. It should offer relief, but instead it just makes it so jarring, going back and forth, and you spend a lot more time in those messy situations. There's so much stimuli constantly being thrown your way that you don't know what to pay attention to. You can't keep track of anything, whether it be the details for the case or even everything that's in the setting around you itself. It feels like the walls are closing in. The atmosphere was unbelievable, and by far the strongest part of this book. I really hope that this is one of those cases where Halle Efron continues to let this main character shine and we see more in her organization business. Moral of the story for me, while the book was only 3 stars, if you ever hire an organizer, make them sign an NDA, because, man, you never know what they're gonna find and it might not even be yours. Last book that I will be talking about in this video was for prompt number 4, and that was Read a Book with 5 Words in the title. Apparently Paul had very strong feelings about this one. Qualifying for this prompt, names or words. Got it. So, Reappearance of Rachel Price. I have been looking forward to this one for so long. I love Holly Jackson. I loved A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I can't wait until TV series comes out. I think it comes out, what, the 1st of next month or something? So something else to look forward to after the end of Summerween. So I had like high expectations because Good Girl's Guide to Murder, did I give every single one of those 5 stars? I don't know, but I loved that series. Even when she went off the rails at the end, I was like, Pip has reasons. This is the one about Belle, who's just turned 18, and her mom went missing when she was 2. And even though Belle's like ready to move on with her life, the family has decided, you know, for financial reasons basically, they have agreed to film a documentary on the disappearance of Rachel Price. So just as they start filming, they're doing interviews, stirring things up. There's like some tensions in the family, just saying. We get like a grandma situation, and she is delightful. Rachel Price reappears. And to be perfectly frank, Belle does not really buy her entire story. And, you know, Mommy Dearest, she doesn't always help her case exactly. She's a little sus points. I will give Belle that much. So Belle's like, yeah, we got all this filming going on. Great. I'm gonna befriend some of the film crew and get them to help me like check stuff out. They're supposed to be investigating, right? How cool would it be if we like really solved the case? This is not what happened. And if it is, we're just gonna prove it. Everybody's happy. Nobody's happy. Because you know what? If Rachel Price is lying, that means like she's probably dangerous, or like there's other danger, or maybe there's danger anyway. Either way, there's probably danger. So it's Holly Jackson. There's definitely danger. That's not a spoiler. It's frickin' Holly Jackson. So I will say that Belle definitely is channeling like late Pip. I was hoping we would get more early Pip. We have a girl who also like had some trauma. However, I wasn't sure it felt like her attitude was fully vindicated. She was an only child. It didn't seem like she necessarily needed anything aside from the fact that like, yes, people were asking her about her mom growing up. She had teachers who were there for her. She had a grandpa who was there for her before he lost his mind to dementia and like read to her all the time. She really had a family rally around her, and her attitude in general, like it was just, she was 18. She's a little too old to still just be like surly teenager. So immediately I took kind of like a slight disliking to our main character, which is never like a great thing. The writing, however, like this is Holly Jackson. Like you pick it up, you know it's Holly Jackson. It feels like her later writing, it's her writing. And one thing that was so apparent right away was that we were going to constantly be bombarded with all of these details. And Belle, the main character, she's constantly saying, this doesn't seem right, this doesn't seem right. And she's pointing out all of these things that are making her senses tingle. You start realizing that you're not sure what you're supposed to be paying attention to. Are you being misdirected? Is the character being misdirected? This book is over 400 pages. And like, all I can say is just like, it all matters. Pay attention to everything. Everybody has a story. There's something going on everywhere. Oh my gosh. Holly Jackson knows how to weave multiple mysteries. She can weave multiple stories. She can have everybody lie to you. She can have nobody lie to you. She can make the truth seem like a lie. She can make a lie seem like the truth. But she can make every detail come back somehow to bite you later. This book was a great ride. I was enjoying it the whole way through, and then we get to the end and I was like jaw drop, and then we went over a cliff. The ending killed it for me. This was an example of an author just doing too much. Like, you didn't have to do all that. You didn't have to go that crazy. A quieter ending would have been so much stronger. You could have done something that was even slightly, dare I say, symbolic. There were 1,000 different ways to end this that would have been more interesting than what happened. And I feel like she was relying so much on us believing what the character said about their relationships in the end, and I didn't buy it. You can't just relabel something and call someone something because you want to. It's not how it works. And likewise, just because you're blood related to someone does not automatically create the feels. And if this author has just decided that like she loves the wild, crazy endings and that's gonna be her new thing, oh no. Because I loved the rest of it. The rest of it's great. It made sense. It had this almost like Nancy Drew vibe at times. We're peering in windows. We're looking through books for secret codes. We're ducking and hiding. We're sneaking around. We're hiding cameras. We're doing all the things. And it all felt so realistic until the end just went nuts. In the end, I did give this book 4 stars because for me to say this is a terrible book based on like the last couple chapters, that doesn't work at all. And for a book to create something that's complicated and explain everything and bring back all the details and do all of that work, yes, that was all great. But I hated the end. I hated the end. I'm just gonna say it. I hated the end. But that is it for me. Those were the first 3 books that I read for Summerween. I still have left to do How to Solve Your Own Murder for Read a Thriller book. I'm not reading horror, okay? And read a book that takes place in summer, although Careful What You Wish For took place in summer, and so did Listen for the Lie, and so does How to Solve Your Murder. So weirdly, a lot of these take place in summer, and I am currently reading The Resort, which is so summer. They're in Thailand, okay? They're hiking. There's thunderstorms. Summer. So Summerween, indeed. But thank you so much for joining me. I will let you get back to your book, and I'll be getting back to mine. Will it be The Resort? Will it be How to Solve Your Own Murder? I don't know. I'm in the middle of both, which was a choice. But thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.